This is a test of the emergency broadcast system.
In 5, check for sound. 4,
It's showtime.
3,
Let's
2,
go.
1.
This is the Pro Audio Suite, a program all about audio and voiceover. Our panel consists of George the Tech Whittam from LA, Robert Marshall of Someone Audio Post, Chicago, and Source Connect, Darren Robbo Robertson of Voodoo Sound, Sydney, and myself, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent based just out of Melbourne, Australia. Don't forget to check out all episodes on our website. That's theproaudiosuite.com. Now let's get on with the show. Welcome to another Pro Audio Suite. We have a very special guest this week from the United States of America. Well, actually not really. More from Holland, but lives in the United States of America. Paul Strikwerda, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Now, a year ago, you had a very nasty experience.
You can say that. I remember the day. I don't know how many of you have heard my story, but it was a year ago on March 26th that I passed out in my studio. I don't have any ventilation in my studio, so it was one part lack of oxygen, one part it was my heart, and my heart eventually ended up sending a blood clot to my brain. And when I woke up, I was paralyzed on the studio floor. I had no idea to open that heavy studio door because I didn't have any strength in my arms, in my legs. And I tried to talk to my phone to wake up Siri to call 911, but I had very slurred speech. And so my phone didn't understand me either. So I was locked up in this studio and I thought, this is my final hour. I'm going to die. And I had a terrible stroke. But my wife was expecting me at a council meeting where she was. She's a town councillor here. And I didn't show up as promised. And she got very worried. So when I didn't show up, she called the chief of police and they checked on me and they saved my life. But it had not been for my wife, I would no longer be here. I mean, you could probably still hear it from the way I talk. I'm not speaking the way I'm used to speaking. It's not as fluent. And I have trouble finding words and remembering things. And I stumble over my words and I talk too fast when I get really enthusiastic. But I've recovered pretty well and I can walk again and I can do my work, not as well as I could, but I can still do voiceovers, thank goodness. But like I said, if it had not been for my wife, I would be dead by now.
The plasticity of the brain, it's amazing how it'll come back. It'll take a little bit of time, but I had a family member who had a stroke, and it's amazing how they're all so different because some people walk into the hospital and don't come out, and other people go in on a stretcher, and then the recovery is amazing, like it never happened almost.
Yes.
And so
that's why they say different strokes for different folks.
Boom, boom.
I guess that's where that saying comes from.
Yeah.
I like it.
I've been visiting too many hospital waiting rooms because I've had therapy like 4 days a week and it's going better now. But I've seen so many people who are a lot worse off, who can't move a limb, who are drooling and are totally dependent on their partner. And then I look at myself and almost feel guilty for how well I'm doing and that I'm so lucky. I guess it wasn't my time, and I feel that that one of my missions in life is not only doing nice voiceovers and writing interesting blogs, but also doing some education and tell people about what it's like and how to prevent strokes. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about it a little bit and open up.
Yeah.
It was really terrifying, and for a couple of weeks it was really close call, but I made it, and you're absolutely right. The brain has this tremendous plasticity where you don't get any brain cells that you lose, you don't get them back. But what happens is that different parts of the brain take over. It does, yes.
I'll just use this now instead. It's literally like exercising a muscle.
Yes. I had to relearn how to walk and I had to relearn how to talk. When I just got out of that stroke, I could not express myself. I could not emote. I sounded like a robot. And it was so incredibly frustrating because I had this script and I knew where I wanted to put the emotion, but I couldn't get it out of my mouth. But I thought, as long as my brain knows what I should sound like, I eventually will be able to recreate it. And with a lot of work and a lot of help from speech therapists, I eventually got there. I'm not there 100%, but I'm convinced I'll get there at some point. But you're right, it's a lot of hard work, but the brain can do it. Absolutely.
You know, a different sort of angle on the same subject, but I know that there was a hand model in New York who had like insured her hands, and it was a news story I remember, reading, and it makes you think, like, your voice is your entire living asset as far as like how you make your living. And it's like, I wonder if voiceover people have ever insured their voice. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I do know. I try to do it here with no success, but I do know because Nick Tate told me that when he first started doing movie trailers, I think it was Don LaFontaine told him to go and get his voice insured. And, imagine losing your voice when you're earning, $1 million a year or something.
Yes.
Right.
I know opera singers do it.
Yeah.
I did make sure that I got a very good ENT who specializes in performers. And, they put a tube down your nose and into your throat and looking at your vocal folds. And because my voice wasn't the same, it tires really quickly. It sounds like I've been speaking for hours, even when I've just talked for 10 minutes. And she discovered that there was something wrong with my vocal folds that was probably the result of the stroke, and that might never heal. The only thing that she could suggest was an injection, but that's only a 50% success and 50% chance that it makes things worse. But there's a tremor on my vocal folds that causes my voice to strain and tire easily. So I'm not so happy about that residue, but it's, again, I think it's a muscle, so I keep on practicing. There's an app called the Voice Builder that I highly recommend, where if you ever have vocal trouble, it's a vocal coach who had developed it, who is the vocal coach to the stars like Christina Aguilera and Barbra Streisand and Whitney Houston when she was still alive. He developed a program called Voice Builder, and I found it very beneficial. But you're absolutely right. I was terrified when I found out that I had this tremor on my vocal fold that would probably never go away, because I thought, my gosh, there goes my career. What do we do now? And I seriously thought about stopping and giving up and becoming a full-time writer, because I just couldn't do the audiobooks, couldn't do long-form narration. But now I found a way to do less and make more, which I enjoy doing anyway. So I'm doing short form now, trying to get better rates and make more by doing less, which is something I can I can advise everyone, really, that they should go that way. Do more, make less.
Good man.
Do less, make more. Come on.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Like, I wonder if you can insure your voice for a particular incident, and maybe you lose a gig. We had an incident the other day where a voice talent, lost his voice, and luckily we were able to record him a week later. But in a different situation, it just would have been, we have to get somebody else. We're sorry. Yeah,
I don't know how you go about that. You just lose the gig, unfortunately. But it'd be great if you get some kind of insurance for it. That'd be.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'd do it for hangovers. That'd be kind of
cool. Hangover insurance.
Yeah, I can't work today. I'm making a claim. I'm seriously hungover.
It's not my fault.
I think that a lot of newcomers don't really realize how vulnerable they are and how much you really have to put into your rate in order to make a living and to be safe in your existence as a professional. And that includes you have to be paid for the times that you do not work, that you're not allowed to work, not able to work. And everything's fine as long as you're healthy. You don't think about, I have to insure my voice. You don't think about life insurance. You don't think about reserving money for your funeral. We don't want to do that. Those are topics we'd like to not think about. But once something serious happens, like a stroke that completely comes out of the blue and hits you in the face, and there you are, you wake up in a hospital bed, you have no idea what happened, and you realize that you're in a bed in a situation where you spend like $20,000 a day, and that's even cheap. And you have to pay a surgeon $100,000. There are people here in the United States that when they come home, they got hit by a bill from the helicopter that transported them from home to a hospital, $46,000, and you can go bankrupt simply because something happened that you have no influence over, that took you by surprise. They have to build that into their fee, and most people have never thought about it.
Yeah.
They could lose their job. I mean, you can get a stroke, or you can cross the road and something could happen, because we don't want to think about those things. We want to push them away as far as possible, and we always want to look at the bright side of life and celebrate our business, the business that we're in, and show our best side off to our colleagues. Everything is going well, and we're invincible, and we're not. Well, as I personally experienced a year ago, we're not invincible.
Yeah. I did actually see your blog recently, which kind of covered some of those points, but directing mainly at people on social media asking, dare I say, inane questions. And I thought your blog was all the stuff that every time you read this thing, you want to actually say, but you think, oh, probably best left. But you said it all, which is great. What's been a response to that blog?
It's been tremendous, really. It's amazing. And it surprised me, because I've been saying the same stuff for the past 10 years, really. When I look at what I started when I started blogging 10 years ago, these were the things I wanted to blog about, because these are the questions that people had then, and they still have them. So every time I write a blog, I get people who thank me over and over again and say, this is so enlightening. I'm glad you told me, because I never thought about it. And there's people who say, oh, you've been preaching to the choir. You really got to stop doing that, because we know it. Well, a lot of people know what to do, but they don't do it. And that's our problem. And we need repetition for things to sink in. And so that's a little part of my mission and my vision for my blog, is to be that repetitive voice at the back of your mind that say, please take this into consideration. And I want to enhance people's professionalism by letting them think about the things they don't want to think about. And go beyond the superficial conversations that we have with one another about these things on Facebook. Because I think it's great to have your short interactions with people on these threads. You get 3 or 4 lines in, and then somebody else takes over. And the blog actually allows me to elaborate a little bit and build on the topic and expand and have a whole series about what it's like to be in this business. And people can relate to it. And I've also had people who are very angry and who think I'm just the biggest jerk in voiceovers. They think I'm a very nasty man because I take away their dreams, or I want to scare off the competition. That's another big thing that I always get. Oh, you're just one of those old folks that is afraid of the new generation. We can do anything we want, any way we want, and we don't need your advice. Well, okay, you don't have to. I mean, I don't need to convince anyone of anything. If that's the way you want to play the game, I'm just trying to be helpful. But it's so far it's really good. And I'm not going to lie, part of why I blog is because I want to get people to my website. Because when they do, Google thinks I'm very important. And when Google thinks I'm important, they put me higher up the rankings. And when clients look for an international voiceover like myself, I'm one of the first ones to show up. So, I think it's a win-win situation. I try to provide good content for my community, and I try to work on my search engine optimization through my blog. And so far, it's been a great strategy, because I really haven't spent a dime on advertising.
Yes, the old SEO, the blog on your website, is a very good idea.
That kind of goes to the core of the whole union, non-union thing as well. Because people don't think about that.
Yeah. I actually saw it was Bob Bergen, and he was quite open on a thread somewhere where he talked about that exactly. He did actually say that he was lucky that he'd been in the industry at the time when it was, you were paid very well for your work. But it looks like his pension, when he stops working, his SAG pension, he's still going to be paid like $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But that's because we talked earlier about the advantages and disadvantages of working by yourself in isolation. And we're vulnerable, and we need to protect ourselves. And that's one of the great things about being in a union. When I was a journalist working for Dutch national and international radio, the first thing I did is become a member of the union, because I needed that protection exactly for the things like we discussed. What happens when you lose your voice, when you can't work anymore? You need to have workers' comp and make sure that you get paid when you cannot work. And many people don't think about that. And at least when you're a member of the union, you know that you're covered. But, and with somebody in my situation, most of my jobs are not in the United States, so I really wouldn't qualify for any union job. So it's just me, myself, and my boss, my wife, who takes care of the finances.
Well, I'm going to have to sign off. It was really wonderful to have the opportunity to speak with you.
Hey, likewise. You're going to face the music now, I heard?
I am. My daughter's concert is starting imminently, so I have to go in. But
all right, enjoy.
Thank you for coming on, and you guys, thank you for your flexibility. Sorry about the phone catch here.
Too easy.
It worked perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Go enjoy the concert.
All right.
See you, Rob.
Now, I was going to talk about your blog as well, because one of the things that I find really frustrating when I read some of these threads, as I mentioned before, the questions are quite inane, but apart from being inane, they're also so naive and entry-level kind of questions. And you think, if you don't know what that is, how on earth do you think you're going to make a living out of this industry?
But people don't know what they don't know. And they like to parade their ignorance all over social media. It's really laughable. And I really have to think deeply about what I want to write about and put myself into the shoes of those people who don't know what they don't know. I found a new audience that way. And yes, you're absolutely right. You look at those questions and say, gosh, why haven't you thought about it? I think people have become really lazy. You and I probably grew up in a time where there was no internet and when you had to go to the library to do some research. And that's what I did. I mean, I joined a radio a company in the Netherlands, a broadcasting company, a public broadcasting company when I was 17 years old, and I knew nothing about the business. But before I came in, I made sure that I read as much and talked to as many people as I could. I was making youth radio programs. We had this great program where one day I was the presenter, the next day I was the producer, the next day I was a roaming reporter. The day after that, I picked out the music and so on and so forth. So I learned all aspects of the business and I asked questions, but not until I first had made an attempt to find the answer myself. Now, fast forward to now, 2019, where ignorance is no longer an excuse because you find anything anywhere on the internet. Just type in the basic questions, you get tens of millions of hits of answers. But people are not even willing to do a basic internet search. No, they have to bother other people online and ask those questions. And there's people who respond to those questions as well. I mean, I have better things to do than that. So I put them in a blog so people can refer to them, to my answers later. But one of my things is to tell people, stop feeding those babies. Babies don't learn how to eat and feed themselves if you keep on spoon feeding them. People don't deserve it. They have to show some effort and some interest in the job itself and some basic knowledge and understanding, because otherwise you don't deserve my time. I'm becoming more radical about it, and I refuse to be an enabler of those people who don't want to spend the time to do a basic Google search. It's really appalling.
Yeah, but it's interesting. The people that do actually spoon feed them, I think they do it for their own ego. It makes them feel important.
Yeah, you're right. I think so too. Because on the internet, it's an equal playing field. It doesn't matter whether you're an expert or you're an idiot. You all get the same level of attention. We can see it from the answers. There's certain groups, if I want to have a good laugh, I go to them in the morning and they always make my day because they're so dumb and stupid. And really, and you see the same discussions over and over again. Should I use a Mac or a PC? Should I record sitting up or sitting down? What do I do with mouth noises? How do I quote? I mean, it goes on and on and on. You can make a whole list, and I've done that too. And hopefully, people will stop asking them. But it comes back again and again and again, and it's such a big waste.
Yeah, I don't get the entertainment value out of it, unfortunately. I just read them and get really angry. But there's so many idiots in there just muddying the waters for the rest of us.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is a problem. And it has become a problem that now a lot of people who have worked for their whole career online have no idea how the business used to work, and they assume that is the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're not helped by colleagues who should know better at all.
Yeah.
My philosophy is now, if those people struggle, let them struggle. You need to give people an opportunity to fail. And what we're doing now is we enable them to succeed at their level, and by spoon-feeding them the answers. I want people to fail as much as they can, because that's the only way some people will learn. Because I've given them advice at the beginning too. And you know what? They don't listen to it. They're not grateful for it. You don't get a thank you for it. And it just ends up in a big black hole. And it's a waste of my time. I mean, I've every week I get questions because of my blog from people. And the basic question is, can I pick your brain? Where I can tell them everything that I know, and they don't have to pay for anything. They don't have to send me a gift card or a cup of coffee, whatever. And I've done that. I've done that many times in the beginning because I said, I'm a nice person. I want to help people. I had my start thanks to a lot of people on whose shoulders I was able to stand, and they talked me through it. But I'm not doing it anymore because I've dealt with the most ungrateful people whom you never hear back from again. And then you lose 2 to 3 hours a day where I can make money. So I stopped being a nice person, and I said, I'm going to write down stuff in my blog instead. And if they want something, I'll say, okay, this is my blog. Take it or leave it. If you want to read it, you can read my book as well. That's where it is. And I'm not going to spend 2 hours on you. So they say that I'm a horrible person. Well, too bad.
I saw an interesting one the other day, actually. It was, I think it was it Terry Daniel? I don't know whether you saw it, but someone had contacted him and wanted some coaching. And then he said, yeah, sure, I can coach you and it's going to cost you this much. And the guy's like, you're going to charge me for it? And then said, go fuck yourself.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I wrote the comment underneath saying, whenever anybody ever tells me to go fuck myself, I say, I have other people do that for me because I'm too busy working.
One of the wonderful things of this industry is that we have VoiceOver Extra. John Florian, who curates it, usually combs through all the VoiceOver blogs in a week and then has his pick that he puts out on VoiceOver Extra. And so my article that I wrote about the basic questions that people ask and answers that they don't want to hear, he republished it. And just to give you an example of what one guy wrote, and this guy, I looked him up, he's a DJ, but he said, here's a tip. Just add a blog to your VoiceOver website. Then get sites like VoiceOver Extra to post your article, which links back to your blog. You can just write about anything. Just write obvious info like hum the lowest note as a warm-up before doing a voiceover. Blog about anything and somehow related to voiceovers. This guy is right in that it does increase your SEO, and it also creates the impression that you're an expert in your field. Lawyers do it all the time, for example. They write articles to create the impression that they're extremely knowledgeable about the subject, and it draws people to their firm. Or people comment on the article like I'm right now. Most of the time, it's just obvious stuff. You're welcome. Yeah, that's the level of answers that this evokes. Yes.
Yeah.
You've gone somewhere that I'm a little bit interested in hearing from you, but now after what you've said about giving away information, I'm also going to ask it with a little bit of trepidation.
Okay.
You mentioned that you've sort of turned your business around from doing sort of long-form books and stuff to now doing more short-form stuff after your stroke. Without giving away, the absolute secrets and details, how did you do that? Was it social media? Was it just getting on the phone? Was it sort of turning down jobs, taking others? How did you manage that? Because that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Well, the number one decision I had to make when I got out of the hospital and got my first voiceover job, and I found out that I couldn't do it because my voice was not helping me at all, was, am I going to be open about this or not? Because I don't want to lose any jobs because people think that I'm handicapped and I have no voice left. Because I had confidence that my voice would come back eventually, but I wasn't sure that clients were willing to wait that long. So part of me said, if you hide it, then nobody knows about it and they will hire you again and again. Otherwise, they'll think you're this handicapped person that they cannot rely on. On the other hand, I said, I can be very open about it and tell people what's going on and what I can and cannot handle. That way, I handle their expectations up front and they'll seek me out for jobs that I can actually do. So I ended up being very open about it, and I'm very glad I did. And since my blog is read so well by not only my colleagues, but by a lot of my agents as well, they got the message. They knew that I was still in business, but that they should not send these long-form narrations to me. So from that moment that I started being open about it, I never got any audiobook requests unless people were completely new and hadn't heard about my story. I didn't get these long e-learning things, but like things that I could break up into small bits and bytes, a slide here, a slide there. Like today, I had a script that was half hour total, but it could break it up in small parts. It's like, how do you eat an elephant, in small bits and bytes? I can do those things. So by being open, I prepared the people that would hire me, and that has worked really well for me. And as an added bonus, I got a lot of feedback from people who said, I've gone through this as well, or I've had family members, and thank you for writing about what it's like to have had a stroke and about your recovery. And I've made so many new friends since I came out of the hospital. And I'm not one of those people that says something that hits you at random is a blessing in disguise. But if there's a silver lining, it's that I've made new friendships, and people look at me in a different way, in a more friendly way, in a more understanding way. And I got a request from a client the other day and explained the situation because he hadn't heard about my story. And I said, this is your deadline. I know you want it back in 2 days, but this is a situation with my voice. Okay, if I send it back in a week. And they completely understood, and it was fine. So many times, you have to be open about it. And clients are willing to go the extra mile if they really want your voice and like what you're doing. So yes, my advice would be open about it. Don't sign up for a project where you can't deliver and you get yourself into a situation where you have to say no or apologize and ask for an extension of the project. That's not good. I'd rather tell people up front what my limitations are, and they're very, very willing to work with me, thank goodness. There's a lot of goodwill. What we believe clients will think of what they will do, even with rates. Before client has said, I can't pay it, we already have said it to ourselves, oh, I better not quote that high because they probably won't be able to afford me. How do you know? You never know what a client cannot afford. They always try to lowball you. So don't give yourself that idea when you start the negotiations. And that's the same thing if I would have started the negotiations by, oh, they'll think of me as a stroke victim who's lost his voice. I probably won't be able to get the job because of this and that and the other. No, don't do it, because you've already lost if you get into that mindset.
It's funny, we've spoken about him on the show before, but we had a voiceover artist here in Australia, a guy called Matt Ponsonby, who was blind and had been blind since, he wasn't born blind, but he went blind due to a disease when he was a child. And similar story, you would never know Matt was blind unless you actually worked with him. There was no mention of it on his website there, but he was the ultimate professional. He turned up 20 minutes before he was booked, and he would bring his brailing machine with him, and he would get the receptionist in the studio or someone from around the radio station to sit down and read him his script, and he'd braille it up. By the time you were ready, you say the session was 2:00. By the time 2:00 rolled around, he had the script brailled out. He was ready to walk into the room and put it up there, and was the consummate professional with the most beautiful voice, I have to say. And so it's really just how you handle it, isn't it? How you handle yourself and the way you approach it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's funny though, because on the other side of this, I had a client that I was working with quite a lot, and I blew a disc and I couldn't drive to the studio. So we did a remote session from my place. The client wasn't happy at all. And in fact, to the point where I've never worked with that person since.
Wow, really?
And we did it all with Source Connect. Everything went swimmingly, not an issue. But because I wasn't in the studio, because I couldn't get in the car and drive, bang, gone.
Name and shame. Go on, get it out there.
No, I won't. I won't, just in case it comes back. But that was really interesting. It's you can always tell the good clients from the bad ones when something like that happens.
It's probably not good. It's probably not good or bad, but it's probably just, I want to say ill-informed, but it's not even that, is it? It's just sort of not keeping up with the times. There's a whole bunch of things rolled up in there, isn't there?
Yeah. I look up, to me, and particularly with the current discussions globally about the state of the planet, It makes absolute perfect sense that we should be working remotely like we are today, using technology that we're using today on this podcast. I mean, all three of us are in different cities. We're having no problem. In fact, that we're in two different countries, but we're having no issues communicating with each other. And yet for some reason, there's this odd pushback about it. And people want you to sit in your car in a traffic jam, pumping rubbish into the atmosphere, as opposed to working from here.
Well, people can be very particular. I have certain clients that only want to deal with me on the phone. And then there are other clients who hate being on the phone and I only deal with them via email. And then there's clients that want to be texting me all the time. And I really have to keep track of who is doing what and likes to do what in order to keep them happy. Because I think some people are more auditory, some people are more visual, and you see it in their working style. But you're absolutely right. In this day and age of climate change, and boy, it is changing, we should be promoting ourselves as one of the greenest industries in the world. I'm pretty close to New York, but I try to avoid it like the plague because I never know when I will arrive there. It takes about 90 minutes, but on a bad day, it takes about 3 hours. You have to pay tons in tolls and tons in parking. You spend like 10 to 15 minutes in the studio. You record it, you're done, you go home, and I'm losing a whole day. So for me, I'm very strict about that too, and I've lost many jobs because of it. They say, I'm not going to New York unless they're paying me $1,000 per gig. And my agents know it, they respect it, and they don't bother me for anything less than $1,000. I've learned to put my foot down, and I know that once you do that, people will respect it.
But it is interesting that we do have a very potentially a perfect green industry. But it's just a matter of that education that people don't need to travel. We don't need to sit in cars. And I think, we've talked about on the Quick Bite that we did together with Robert, we talked about having a video link, which is something I think probably is not a bad idea. So it'd be like a virtual glass where you look at a big screen that could be your studio window. And on the other side of that, what would have been a window is your client or the studio. There is nothing that I can think of that doesn't work working remotely, even if you're working to pictures, because once you've locked up the latency and you're taking audio cues, which you do anyway. When I'm doing a TV commercial, I'm not looking at the screen for my visual cues. I'm listening to the audio.
Definitely. Well, here's one that springs from that, and this may be a problem more for me than for you guys, but it occurs to me because it happened to me the other day. And to be fair here, I should preface this by saying I've sort of dug my own hole on this because I promote my studio as a 24/7 studio. So, I'm asking for last minute stuff. But how do you guys find the client understanding in terms of the way we work? Because the reason I'm asking this is I have a client who regularly rings me and goes, hey, we've just finished this edit. I know it's 10 o'clock in the morning, but I need it back by 2 o'clock this afternoon. Can you get it done? And of course, selling myself as a 24/7 studio, it's up for me to say, okay, yes, I can do that. Further to what you were talking about earlier, Paul, or no, I can't. I won't have the time. You might have to take it somewhere else. How do you guys find that? Do you guys find that client understanding of, hey, well, it's only a 30-second read. It'll only take him 30 seconds to read it and we'll have it back? Or do you find that they sort of understand a bit more in terms of, okay, well, there's a little bit more to it than that?
I have had the perfect excuse because I can bring up my stroke story and tell people that since my stroke, I have limited energy and limited ability to focus, and plus my voice gets affected, and they have to want to deal with that. Once again, I'm very upfront, and for me, it's not an excuse; it's a genuine reason. So they can call me and they can offer me a lot of money, and there's days that I just cannot do it because I'm not able. My voice is not able. I have no energy. I won't be able to get the words out of my mouth. So either we rescheduled for tomorrow or you have to find someone else. And I've lost lots of money because of it. And at the same time, I was surprised how many people were willing to work with me because they really wanted my voice. And because, we live in a day and age where everything has to be done quickly, fast, and preferably yesterday, and they'll pay you in 3 months, And I really fight against that whole mentality. It seems like that people are proud of that, so that they're so busy. And I don't pride myself in being very busy. I just pride myself in doing a really good job. And I know what my limitations are. And so that's my particular situation.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about what I was like before the stroke. And part of my stroke is also that it's affecting my memory. So some of the things are just completely gone. I just draw a blank on that. Yeah.
I can do that myself.
But
I can medicate myself into losing memory. Don't you worry about that. But that's another story.
Hey, listen, I've just noticed George has joined the conversation. Hello, George.
hey, George.
Hey, everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, I'm doing well. We're having a great conversation here. Thanks for joining us.
Wonderful. I'm glad you're doing well. I've caught the last minute or so, and I'm just so glad to hear, your journey of health is continuing and getting better.
Yes. Absolutely.
So with George chiming in, now might be a good time to turn our attention to technical aspects of your studio, Paul.
Aha, yes.
Yeah, we've
You wanna
talked
know what I'm
about that
using?
stuff from time to time over the years, haven't we? I've certainly
Yes.
learned of a few things from your experiments over the years and recommended things based on what you found. So
Talk us through your setup, Paul. What are you
Well,
running?
I'm a very lucky bastard because the microphone that I'm using is a Microtech Gefell M930 TS. It's they call a Gefell the East German Neumann. Well, of course, we no longer have East Germany, but after the war, the Neumann factory was split up in two parts. One part became the West German factory, and the other part was the East German factory. They kept on making microphones in the old traditional way. Everything's handmade, and this is a microphone that I didn't pay for. I won it from a raffle. There was
Yes,
this great
I couldn't
website
believe it
called
when I saw that.
Microphone Hacks. Yeah, it's amazing because I never win anything, but it's I think it's Microphone Hacks. No, it's not. It's
Recording
help me
Hacks?
out, George. What? Recording Hacks, exactly.
Recording
That's it.
Hacks,
Recording
right,
Hacks.
right.
Yep.
Yes. I'm not sure if they're updating it. Matthew McGlynn is the guy behind it. Terrific website that tells you anything about any mic you ever wanted to know. Recording Hacks. So they had this raffle. Every month they raffled off a new microphone, and I won this terrific condenser microphone. It's the smallest large condenser microphone in the world. It's used by the Pope even. So if it's good enough for the Pope, it's good enough for me. It's hanging down from a Rycote Envision studio kit. I'm a big fan of the Rycote shock mounts with the lyre system.
those are nice.
So you don't have wires, but you have lyres.
Right,
Pants on
right.
fire. which is really nice. And I have a K&M boom arm. So it's nice and quiet. And then it used to feed in an Audient ID22, but that kicked the bucket a couple of days ago. And I had to get a little small unit. So I got the little baby brother, and that's the Audient ID4, which has the same preamps that they also use in their big units and use in the ID22. And it's a plug and play little thing there. You don't have to even power it. You just stick it in the USB port, and it works brilliantly. I love Audient. It's very sturdy, and it gives me very clean audio. I rarely have to clean anything up, and I've been really impressed by the quality of those English guys.
Yeah.
So,
And there you have it, really. That's my studio.
Well, it's interesting because I've also got the M930. You got the Transformer version, but I have the one without the Transformer, which I've had for years and years and years, not using it at the moment. But mine is the 80th anniversary George Neumann special because, as you mentioned before, that Microtech FL is actually really the true Neumann, because Neumann, after the war, was sold to Sennheiser. But their Neumann factory in Gefell, which was known as Neumann Gefell, was taken over by the communists, and they changed the name from Neumann because they didn't want to associate with the German, and changed it to, it wasn't Microtech Gefell back then, it was some other name. I can't remember exactly what it was. But hence the reason that, different name, but it is actually the real Neumann with all the original tools.
Yes. And it's such a sweet little mic, and I love it because it's in my field of vision, because I read from my computer in my little booth that I built myself. I got a 7x7 sound booth, and it keeps my field of vision pretty much free. I don't have this big, huge mic in front of my face. And it just works brilliantly. And I didn't pay a dime for it. It's phenomenal. I've tried many mics in the past and many mics later on as well, because every now and then I get my hands on one and want to test a few so that I can write about them in my blog. But this has always been my go-to mic, and it will stay with me for a long, long time because it's indestructible. And it's just so cute and lovely.
And beautifully made.
Absolutely. Very beautifully made. I take care of it very well. Whenever I'm done with a session, I put a little sack around it.
Yeah, exactly.
And in it, I've got this silicone little, crystals in there too, to keep it nice and dry, because you really need to take care of your baby.
Silica gel, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there's little things that you get when you order all kinds of stuff online. It comes with those silica gel things. And I want to protect it.
Now, you also used to have a Grace Design M101. And, of course, George, you know the Grace brothers.
Yes, I do.
What was the reason for getting rid of the Grace?
Tend to think of that. That's a good question, because it was working really well for me as well. I love the Grace. Very nice and clean, crisp, clear sound. And it's probably this little gearhead in me that just wanted to try a new shiny object. And I couldn't afford to buy a whole new ID22 thing. So I had to sell something. I said, okay, Grace, you got to go. We've had a nice life together, but it's time for you to seek a different home. But I was very happy with the Grace, and I would still buy it.
If they would only put a USB port in it.
Yeah, they have now?
No.
There's a USB.
No, but I've told them to do it.
Okay. Well, they should listen to you.
They're extremely... They know what they want and they know what their clients want, but they also have this like aversion to making an interface because they feel like there's too many of them out there already and they don't want to compete with everybody else. But boy, if they had a USB interface and a headphone jack in that thing, it could be a killer piece of gear.
That would be ideal.
When you can keep your studio simpler and still achieve sonically an equivalent sound, it's like simple. Sometimes it's really nice for voice actors to have a simple studio.
Yeah, I just remember, I think one of the reasons why I got the ID22 was I could plug in two mics at the same time, because I had the idea that I wanted to have a mic for commercials, like the 416, and then one more for long form narration, like the Gaffel that I'm using right now. And I wouldn't have to switch and plug them every time, plug a different mic in. So I thought that looked really handy to me, be able to plug two mics in. And it also gave me a virtual mixer that I liked as well. And I think there was some high-pass filter on the Grace, right?
Yeah, there was.
Because I also got that on the... Yeah, it does.
Yeah, the Audient is one of the very few units like it that actually does have a high-pass filter on it. Most of the interfaces, all-in-ones do not. So that was a compelling feature to me.
That was the only thing that's missing now from my little ID4 unit that I have to tie me over until Audient repairs the ID22. There's no high-pass filter. And I do miss it. I do miss it because it's such an easy way to get rid of the low rumble. And I can use a plugin and everything, but it's just so handy to have it ready. Just to flip the switch and you're done. Yeah,
absolutely. Audience, I have to admit, you know how I do a lot of studios, so I don't see just one Audient ID22. I see 50. And there's been quite a failure rate of the ID22. I don't know what's going on, but I've had at least 6 or 7 people now with ID22 failures. It's a bummer because that was a piece of gear I would hang my hat on, right? I just told everybody to go get it. And as a guy that recommends gear to, hundreds, if not thousands of people by proxy or more, it's when you recommend something and then it turns out to start having issues, it's always, it's a letdown. It's a bummer. And the ID4 is awesome. I love the ID4. I love the simplicity of it. It's clean. It's simple. It's affordable. It's portable. I think the ID4 is fantastic. I don't know anybody that's had a failure with that, but it's a far simpler unit. and it doesn't have that external power supply. So for whatever reason, that's something that's been happening with a number of people.
Yeah. When I described the problem that my ID22 was having to the Audient people, it's like when you have an old radio and you were switching between channels, it's that sound in between channels. That's what was coming from the inside of the ID22, and they have no idea what's causing it. They think it's hardware related, so they're sending me a UPS label free of charge. I can send it to their repair unit here in the United States, and even though it's out of warranty, they repair it for me. So I got to tell you, they stand behind their stuff. Definitely,
that's good stuff. That's good to know.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, I was surprised too, because it's built to last and it's working.
Yeah.
It's been working for me very well. But it gave up. So thanks goodness for one day delivery, because I ordered it on Amazon one day and the next day I got it and could keep on going with my voiceover project, because it always happens at the time when you cannot afford to lose your preamp. It always happens like that. It's like Murphy's Law.
Let that be a lesson. Everybody should have a second backup interface or something, even a mic port pro or something basic. Just
I keep a 002 rack stored in the cupboard here in the studio, just in case my Pro Tools goes down. So I've just chuck that in and stick in the firewire cable and keep going.
I think you can get a 002 now on eBay for, what's the lowest amount you can sell something? 12 cents?
Oh, really? I got one for $40 over here not long ago, and I'm about to buy another one because I'm building a voice booth for my wife, and I'm just going to chuck a 002 in there for her to plug her laptop into, so she can just go in there and record. So yeah, they're next to nothing, but robust.
I have a question to George about the lack of a high-pass filter. While I was researching ways to get a high-pass filter other than just a plug-in, I came across a thing made by Shure. It's called a condenser microphone A15HP. And it looks like it's something that you stick on the back end of your microphone. It's got an XLR thing that you can plug in, and helps eliminate electrical and mechanical noise in an audio system, and it affects frequencies below 100 hertz. I'm reading off the description here.
Right.
When connected to the microphone input on a typical mixer, it reduces low frequencies by 12 dB per octave. Have you used something like that?
I have not used that one or used it. I think I've probably recommended it to maybe more than one person over the years.
Yeah.
There's no reason why it wouldn't work. It's a fixed frequency thing, but then again, so is the switch on the M101 and so is the switch on the ID22. It's just a switch. So, it's basically replicating what that switch does, or what a lot of microphones have. So it's one of those things, it's either going to help or not help at all. And it's a very simple test. Plug it in. Yeah. Oh, that sounds fine. Or plug it in. I don't like the way it sounds. So I think it's probably a good problem solver. It's, again, you don't want to have to keep doing a high pass filter in your software. You want to just keep moving. So this should give you some help in that rumble filtering.
Right, yeah. It's under $50, so it's affordable. So I'll order it and let you know how it works out.
Yeah.
It's a nice little, it looks like the size of a mic port pro almost, not any bigger.
Yeah, it's completely passive. It just has as it says, each leg has a 2.7 kilo ohm resistor. And then it's a very simple piece. So it will not change the sound of the mic. It will not alter it. Won't change. It won't add any noise. It'll just reduce rumble. So I think it's probably going to be just fine.
Out of interest, Paul, what DAW are you using?
I'm using Twisted Wave. Love Twisted Wave. I like the simplicity. It just simply works. And, coming from radio and having all and the Pro Tools environment, I've always found that very confusing for voiceover. I only have one voice. I don't do any mixing myself. I don't add any music. I want to keep it as pure and as simple as possible. And Twisted Waves has just been a revelation. And the guy behind it is so quick to respond and is very personable. Whenever there's a problem, I just have to send him one email, and the same day I usually get an answer. Like I said, it's never let me down. It's phenomenal. And now we got Punch and Roll integrated. What else could you want?
No, it's interesting because I have Twisted Wave on my laptop, but I actually have Wavelab Steinberg on the big machine in the studio here. And a friend of mine I mentioned before, Pip, he came over yesterday and he did an EQ scan of my booth and just found the really odd sounds at certain frequencies and just EQ'd them, basically pulled them down so they've gone. That could be something worth considering. I just wondered what DAW you had and if you had an EQ.
You did an EQ scan? Like, what did he do? Play a tone sweep? Like,
no, he just played one of my voice files and then, slid across the EQ and just found where there was one. It actually sounded like I was shouting at a piece of glass.
Oh, okay.
So he just pulled that.
That's basically what I do. I mean, I don't use anything fancy. I don't use tone generators and all kinds of wacky stuff. And I just use my ears. If I hear something that I don't think quite belongs, I'll adjust for that. That's it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to find that. Look, I can't hear the difference, but just tightens up the audio.
Yeah, Wavelab and Twisted Wave have a lot of commonality. Wavelab's a bit more complex, and it looks a little bit more complex, but they're similar in a lot of ways. And I like the way Wavelab has like an effects rack window that's kind of part of the whole deal. Like it has the rack type thing that Twisted Wave calls a stack, and it works very similarly. And I like how you can have that preloaded and just ready to go at all times. So if you're going to use anything like an EQ notch to adjust for resonance, or you want to use a little bit of this, a little bit of that, it's already can be in the rack and it's just ready to go.
Yeah.
It's really it's a good piece of software. I was big on it for a very long time until I went Mac, and the Wavelab at that time wasn't on Mac, and Twisted Wave kind of stepped in its place for me. But Wavelab is still a great piece of gear.
Yeah.
Soft gear.
Now, Paul, I got a question for you, changing the subject from gear. Where is your majority of your work? Is it speaking English or is it speaking Dutch?
I'd say most of it is speaking English with kind of a weird, undistinguishable accent. I mean, when I first came to the United States, I spoke like a Brit, and people always mistook me for someone from Britain. I wasn't able to work, so what could I do? I could waiter. So it was always a game that I played with my customers, and I said if they could guess where I was from, they could get a free dessert on me. And nobody ever guessed it correctly, because, most of them, they said you're from the UK, because in Holland we learned the Queen's English. So I sounded very posh, and that's how I started. But then something weird happened. I became Americanized, and my accent started to change throughout the years. And now this is this weird mishmash of a little bit of UK, a little bit of Canadian, a little bit of American. But I've never been able to speak with a mid-Atlantic accent or American accent, whatever it is. It's become this strange thing that is me, and that apparently is marketable. And people pick me for their international voice. And that's the majority of my work. Not Dutch, not really English, but like this international man of mystery. And it helps because a lot of companies have a global presence and they work in different markets where sometimes a very English accent doesn't sell their products, or a very American accent is not considered to be very positive, but something in the middle is quite okay. So I really benefit from that. So I sell myself as the ultimate European voice. And it's not something that I cultivated, it just happened.
You know what I hear in there? On some of the phrases when I'm listening to you speak, I hear Arnie. I hear Arnie's accent. Just not on everything, but just on a few phrases and things you say. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, probably.
Actually, can you just say, I'll be back?
I'll be back. Well, Germany's actually the second language Dutch kids learn. German, because Germany is very close, and then it's English, and then it's French, and a little bit of Spanish. But yes, my second language is German. Right. My second language is English. Yeah. So yeah, but when I first came to the United States and I started doing voiceover work, all kinds of people tried to sell me these accent reduction trainings. And they said, you really should do that because you become more marketable. But then I said I would end up sounding like everybody else with the same standard American accent. I want to be me. I want to sell myself like me because there's nobody like me. It's not arrogant, but it's just well, like nobody is like George, nobody's like you. We all have our own voice that is immediately identifiable, and it turned out to be marketable. So I'm keeping what I do, and it's making me good money. I'm going to tell you, yes, in spite of my stroke, I'm having a really good year.
Great.
And it's because of this silly accent of mine that I just got for free.
Well, I mean, we just mentioned Arnie. Look at him. I mean, imagine it makes you think how he would have gone if he had have dropped his accent for the screen.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
He'd be completely
Right.
different.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was talking about this with someone yesterday, day before yesterday, and about how we are told about accents. So when I got into radio back in the late 70s, I had a London accent, and I was told there's no way you'll ever work in Australia with that accent, so you've got to get rid of it.
And you didn't.
And I did. I did get rid of it. And it was weird because then I was on radio acting this character, which I did for years, and then thought, this is ridiculous. Every day I come in and put on this silly voice, and I'm going to stop, which I did. But I didn't go back to my original accent. I ended up with this one, which is nothing like either of the ones that I used to have, which is quite bizarre. And I wonder if people had no idea where either you or myself are from, would they be able to pick it?
Right.
It's tough.
And that's the whole thing. If they can't, then you're in luck,
You
because
can't be
that's
pigeonholed.
exactly what my clients want.
Yeah.
My clients don't want to know where I'm from, because that comes with all kinds of connotations. Some are good and some are not so good. And if they can't identify where you're from, then that works to my advantage. Absolutely. I'm milking that one, really.
Yeah. But it's interesting the point you made about some people don't want a British accent and some people don't want an American accent. They want something that sits in the middle. And that's certainly the case for a couple of my clients. And the reason that I've got them is because they don't want either of those two accents.
Right, and they do these comparative researches where they have the same campaign with a different accent, or same campaign with a woman's voice or a man's voice, and they test them in different markets. And they found out that in Indian markets, American accents do way better than British accents, because the Brits still remind them of their colonial past.
Yes.
Whereas in other countries, like America, they love British accents. Even though the Brits have not been nice to the Americans in the past, they love the British because you sound a little wiser, more intelligent when you have a British accent. So they're very clever about that, and they do extensive research, and it's a whole new different type of expertise to find the right voice for the right campaign depending on the geography.
Are you able to manipulate your accent a little bit for certain jobs?
Yes. And that's part of my job as well, to manipulate it according to the wishes of the client. And one of the things I do is very easily is a Dutch accent. So I can manipulate my voice so I sound a little bit more like... do you know the Dutch film director Paul Verhoeven? He was the one who directed RoboCop and Showgirls. And what's the one with Sharon Stone where she uses the ice pick? Tell me.
Oh, Fatal
That's
Attraction?
the
or whatever?
director of it.
Yeah.
Fatal Attraction, yes. So Paul Verhoeven talks like this. And the Dutch have a very hard time pronouncing the TH. So they say this and that, and how do you do? And so I make my voice a little bit more Dutch accented. But sometimes I have to sound really more British. If I'm trying to be a professor and I'm lecturing people about certain medications, then that's the way I do it. I change my inflection, I go up and down and try to be a little bit more British. And the worst accent that I never get down is American accent. That's what I tell you. If you want me to do American accent, find someone else, because I've never mastered it. I don't find it particularly appealing.
Neither have
and
I.
when I do it, I try to do some kind of Texas accent. And it sounds really ridiculous.
Do people mistake you for being South African?
No, they don't. Even though, Afrikaners and Dutch is very close. The languages are related. When you listen to Afrikaners, it's kind of old Dutch.
Yeah.
But they don't do that. No. It's not an accent that I can do either. I admire people who can do that and switch from one accent into the other seamlessly. I sometimes have to work at it a little bit, but Afrikaans it's a beautiful language. I have a couple of family members who emigrated after the Second World War, who live in Africa, and we can actually I can write in Dutch and they can write in Afrikaans, and we understand one another.
It's interesting. The reason I ask is I would have thought you'd have been picking up some nice work in South Africa, especially in areas of Afrikaans.
I've done some commercials for car dealerships in South Africa, but they always wanted the last one I did was with a French accent. Because it was for a Renault, and they wanted like an over-the-top hello French accent. Do you remember that series?
Hello, yes, of course.
BBC, listen carefully, I only say this once, with René and his merry men. This cafe during German occupation is one of those classic British comedies. And I can do that.
Stupid
I can do
woman.
Spoof accent. You silly woman. Yes. I was aroused by a loud banging.
Yes.
And Herr Flick and Frau Helga. Or what a mistake I make. They got all these little things there, these sayings that became kind of famous. Yes. I can do those things. I can do those little cartoonish accents.
So what are your plans, apart from obviously staying alive?
Yes, that's plan number one, obviously. But my plan is to bring out another book. I've done very well, I have to say, with my very first book, which is Making Money in Your PJs. And it's been out for 4 years now. Yes, for 4 years. And needs some updating. So that's one thing. I'm going to work on a new edition of that book. But I've written so many blogs. And one thing I've realized is that I'd like to give a little bit more shelf life to my blogs. And blogs, it's like podcasts that go in one ear, out the other. It's the same with blog posts. If you put them in a book, it has a little bit more, a longer shelf life. So I've selected about 40 or 50 of my best blogs of the last couple of years. And I was already working on it before I got my stroke, so it was on hold for a year. But I'm now getting back to it and rewriting some of them, updating them. And hopefully at the end of the summer, at the beginning of the fall, it's going to be a new book. And I think I'm going to call it The Blah Blah Business. Or alternatively, I might call it A Cheesehead in Voiceover Land. I don't know which one's better, but I'll test it. It's The Blah Blah Business or Cheesehead in Voiceover Land. It has to be nothing serious because I think life is too serious, and I'd like to introduce a little bit more silliness to the voiceover community.
You could actually call it the Chew Lip service.
Yes, I could do that too. Yes. They have this postcard where you see tulips and it says tulips from Holland. So that's another thing I could do, yes. I don't know if that's copyrighted already, but I could do that. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes, tulips from Holland. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So that's the thing I'm working on, and that's one thing I like about this business. It's very unpredictable. It's one thing I hate about this business, that's unpredictable. But there's always something, because while we were talking, 2 or 3 new voiceover projects came in that look very interesting. Most of them short form. There's long form as well. So, I keep myself busy. Another thing that this is very different, but very much fun for me, is that I'm an announcer, believe it or not. Everybody says you can't use your announcer voice in voiceovers anymore. I've actually been asked to be an announcer for the past 5 years of our local farmers market. I live in a town called Easton, Pennsylvania, and we have the oldest, the longest running outdoor farmers market in the entire United States. We've been in Center Square since 1752. And this Saturday, we have our opening of the summer market season. And I'm going to be the main announcer introducing all the VIPs. We have a ribbon cutting session. I'm the DJ. I play the music there. I introduce the live music. And I'm just in the thick of it, in the middle of Center Square. We have about 24 different vendors. And there's about 4,000 people who come to the market on a nice sunny day. And it's phenomenal to be able to see what you say, how it lands. Because in the beginning of the show, we talked about the isolation that we feel, that we talk to the walls, talk to a microphone, and we have no idea how what we say lands, how people respond. And ever since I started doing those announcing gigs, I know exactly how people respond and how they react to what I do, because they're all around me. And I see people smile. And I'm kind of the billboard of the market, because we have all kinds of vendors and they don't advertise. The only thing they have is me, who tells about the latest specials and about the beets that are on sale and the leeks and strawberries and all the fun and silly stuff. And I try to make up commercials on the fly. And the great thing is that we're in Center Square and it's all filled with loudspeakers, so I can hear my voice throughout the entire downtown of Easton, and it's a mighty feeling. I love it. That's the next big thing for me, and I can't wait. It is. I can tell you, if there's anything that I love doing more than voiceovers, it's doing live announcing. And it's so gratifying because you're very audible and very visible. The people that come up to me and say, boy, you've got a good voice, you should do something with that, And then I tell them about it. And then say, I have this hair salon that needs a local commercial. Could you do that? There's a guy who owns an Indian restaurant who's opening a new chain. He says, can you do on voicemail? So even though it's volunteer work, I've ended up getting gigs from my announcer job being there in Center Square, just as the announcer of the Eastern Farmers Market. It's the best thing ever.
Excellent. I like that.
Or, get out there and go to a hospital because they need people to read to people. Go to a kids' ward where kids have cancer and are bored to death all day and offer to read. It's going to be so much more gratifying than some of the clients will ever be. Or go to a retirement home where people are lonely and they're dying of loneliness and they need somebody who listens to them and somebody who wants to talk to them and somebody to read to them the stories that they know from the past. And I have some students who study voiceover with me, and they're not ready for the big jobs, but they want to gain some experience and say, you know what? Go read to kids, go read to the elderly and make connections. And they come back and they have tears in their eyes. They say, I went to this retirement home. I started reading for one person. Then another person wanted me to read for them. And now they started a book club. And people have discussions about books. And they meet other people through the reading club that they have. And it's grown and grown. And there's so many more things that we can do with our voice than just commercials and audiobooks and e-learning. And it's right out there on your doorstep. You just have to go out and offer your services. And you will love it. So that's my little plug for doing volunteer work and being part of your community.
I like it.
I don't know if you have time, but I just was a side comment I made on Facebook. I said, if I had all the time in the world, I would go to a prison and I would start a voiceover training program there. Because these people are, again, bored to death. And once they get out of prison, they need to do something. And, you don't have to have a voice like Don LaFontaine in order to make a living as a voiceover artist. But these people have plenty of time and you don't need a lot of technical equipment. They can talk to themselves in an old cassette recorder and record it for me and I can coach them. But what if we could get a whole set of people who are in prison right now, are really talented, and start recording audiobooks and then send them to fellow prisoners and they listen to them and it could become a new thing, That's just another idea that I had. And some people who were friends with me on Facebook said, that's a really good idea. You should do that. So I hope someone will pick that up. Go to prisons, teach people a nice profession so they have something to do when they get out and make somebody's day.
The thing is, of course, you've got to remember that while they're in prison, they will be working for free.
Yeah.
Doing our job.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe not such a good idea.
I don't know if they can market their services from inside the prison.
I was going to say, I can't imagine there's too many people who'd be too pleased having their book voiced by a prisoner. But once they get out, it might change. But,
Yeah.
But who would know? Yeah. Who would know? That's the point. No one would know who they are.
Most of them are bored stiff and they want something to do and they have plenty of time to really learn the trade. And, we have this chain here in the United States called Mod Pizza, made on demand. And it's basically you have your pizza, your dough, and then it's like a buffet. You can pick any topping you want, and it's all the same price. And what they do is they help people who have had a criminal past get back on their feet. And so that there's people who who did time, and they're great people, and they make great pizza. So if they can do that, why can't we why can voiceover community help prisoners and get back on their feet and start a career as an audiobook narrator?
Another podcast that I work on, we talked to a guy who was a convicted armed bank robber. He got sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences plus 99 years in London, in the UK. But he while he was in prison, his son died. And because he'd attacked wardens and done all sorts of sort of nasty things while he was in prison, the warden said, well, there's no way I'm letting you out to go to your son's funeral. And it turned his life around. He actually wrote a book and is now an acclaimed author and has actually been released from prison and is leading this amazing life, writing books and speaking on the public circuit. And yes, I mean, I think what you're suggesting is a great idea. I mean, I think if you give these guys something tangible to hang on to and give them some hope,
right,
then you're doing a great thing, no matter what that tangible thing is.
Right, and it's easy to do. It doesn't cost a lot. And you give somebody something else to do because otherwise, they'll end up becoming a better criminal.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what most people end up being, It's a big university of crime, really, because you have the biggest brains in crime get together and all they learn about is become a better criminal.
Yeah.
So why not do something useful and get into voiceovers? It's just an idea, but whoever wants me to take up on it, go ahead and start it. Because
I think it's a great idea.
I'm telling you, doing these volunteer things is so much more satisfying, and it gets you out of the studio, which is so important. Because there's a whole world outside of the walls of our studio that we sometimes don't even realize it's there, and you need to explore it and use your talents to the max. That's one of the things I realized when I was face to face with death. We have limited time, so it matters even more what you do with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we all need this wake-up call, and I got it early on, thank goodness. And now really start to think about what are the things that I can do that are more meaningful. When somebody asks, would you like to do this video game? We need this villain type of person, and it turns out to be a game filled with gratuitous violence. I said, is this really the best way I can use my time? No, it's not. So I'll pass it on to someone else because that's not what I want to do. It really helps me put my life into perspective, my profession into perspective, and also make me realize that it's not always about the money. I've had my best moments doing stuff for free, as I said, in Center Square at the Eastern Farmers Market talking about strawberries. Highly recommend it, yes. And if you ever come to Eastern Pennsylvania, come on a Saturday morning, find me, I'll give you the microphone. That's my promise. And you can be an announcer for a day.
On that note, I don't think there's any more we can say, really, is there?
No, I think we're well covered.
Yeah, that was great.
Oh, it's great being here. I could talk forever.
That was the Pro Audio Suite. If you have any questions or ideas for a show, let us know via our Facebook, the Pro Audio Suite Podcast.
Yeah.